your computer. Yeah.
Okay, we are recording.
Cool. We'll give everybody a couple more minutes to get in here, and then we'll get started on all this exciting stuff. Just making sure I've got all this set up correctly. Thanks, guys, for joining us in the middle of the workday. Hopefully this is allowing you to escape something else less exciting.
Hey, Brian, Paul Burger. I'm fine. Hold on 1 second. Can you hear me?
All right. Well, I think we got a good number of you here, so let's go ahead and get started. We are just going to go over both some things that we've noticed, the QR noticing that's happening on a lot of returns that we want to catch everybody up on, and then also some of the new mysterious IRS things that are happening, just so you guys kind of know, what's going on with that and what we're doing at the moment about it. The answer mostly being waiting. So we'll just go ahead and get started. The first thing is we're seeing on a lot of tickets that preparers are not leaving notes for QR and they're not updating the intake sheet. So if when you look at that initial intake sheet, same as you would in clinic, if anything on that form changes, it needs to be marked on there. So you should open it. You can download like a free PDF reader to your computer. Mark the changes so that we know what they are. There are instructions for how to do this in Padlet as well. And if you have any of those, anybody who has dependents on their return, those gray boxes on the first page of the intake sheet should be filled out as well. All the stuff that says waiting for, for you guys to fill out. So, you should still be asking the client those questions and then marking it down because we are required to have those per the IRS. We have to keep one on file for every return that we do. And it's super important for the QR person to know that you've verified anything that's changed on there, or someone marked down that they had interest income and they didn't, that you have already corrected that so that when they're doing the QR, they reliably know what's going on. So
Safa made a comment that he can't correct the 13.6.14 because he has Windows, and I don't think that's true. I think you can do it very easily with Windows.
Yeah, so what it is, there's some sort of strange file format issue with the PDFs, the intake PDFs from Zendesk. So instead of just directly downloading it, you need to click print, and then instead of printing it, there's a download as PDF option. And that will download it in a file format where you should be able to edit it.
Yeah.
No, see, I can open the PDF. I'm able to open the PDF, but as soon as I say, I try to enter a text in there, it says you have to subscribe for a $14 a month PDF editor.
Okay.
Right, that's it. Yeah, that's exactly what you said, Emma, that when you open it up, you can't edit it, but you have to, when you open it in a browser, you have to print to PDF and then save that. And your Windows has to be set up to allow print to PDF.
So we can, go ahead, Julia.
So when you're using Adobe Reader, the free version of Adobe, you can go and sign and fill, will allow you to make small edits on top of the PDF itself, like once you have downloaded it, and it does not require you to pay if you're doing the sign and fill option. If you try to do the update or edit PDF, then yes, you do have to pay, but we should be enough. I have both versions and I only use the free version to do this. So I will be down to connect with you more after this to see what we can.
Yeah, I need help. I've tried it multiple times and I always end up with you have to pay. I will touch base with you later.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
anybody else who needs help with this, just check in with us. I just pulled up mine. And like with I have the paid version, but this is the same on the free version. You look for the weird little fountain pen, and then you can either use these tools like the X to mark changed questions here, or you can use the this guy to type in like into the gray areas. So theoretically that should work, but it is the download I think is the issue. So
Ulia, I actually, you sent me the link. That was for this, right? About 2 weeks ago, and it gave me a virus.
no.
So I downloaded it and I used it. I got the free version, but anyway, I had to call Apple, and they said it's very common through that Adobe link.
Wow.
So it took me like a whole Saturday to work with them to take everything off. And I can't remember now what it was, but it was something that had spread into many different things.
Oh my gosh.
So I won't be doing that. I won't be downloading the free version. I'll just, hopefully, if anyone has a problem with what I'm doing, I'm using preview and I'm doing a text box and then I'm saving it.
Yeah.
So it's a little tedious, but it works, I think. If not, let me know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I had never heard that
Oh,
before. So letting
sorry.
us know.
Video.
We'll send out, maybe send out like some different options.
I got it figured out. I think it's okay now. It works. Thank you.
Cool. I was gonna say, if there's, if nothing else, even just putting in notes in the notes field of Zendesk, this question is now a no, this question is now a yes. And then if somebody else can edit it, or at least we have that info. All right. Oops, go back. Touchy laptop. Okay. The other thing, when your return is complete, the status needs to be changed in both Zendesk and TaxSlayer. So in Zendesk, it should be set as prep complete. And that's what lets us know to run that second check tool, the automated tool that we're using on every return, is when it's in here. And then once that tool has been run, Patrick Hellman will move it into ready for QR. And then in TaxSlayer, remember that you need to go through to that very final screen of the tax return and click that button that says that it's ready for review. So that when the QR person gets in there, they know that everything is ready. You should also upload the return into Zendesk once you're done with it. So download a PDF of it. And then Bob had recommended this format: their first letter, their first name, their last name, and then prep. And then
Of the taxpayer, not the preparer, right?
Yeah, of the taxpayer. Because that way, when Patrick runs all these returns, it's really easy for him to figure out, what goes back to what file, because he has to match all that up again. And then it's super handy if you also re-upload the intake as well, especially if there's just, like 50 comments on the ticket, just bringing it back up there to the top, whether it's your updated one or if there were no updates, the original one, just so everything is ready to go for the QR person, because they're flipping between a lot of different things when they're checking these returns. And so we want to make sure it's easy for them.
One thing I find really helpful in doing QRs, some people like Dennis does this regularly. Where he uploads the prep version of the return, he also uploads the 13614, whether it's been revised or not.
Mm-hmm.
So that as a QR person, I find I'm searching all over the place for the 13614. It can be halfway down in a series of notes, or maybe Karen Gladney uploaded it early on,
Mm-hmm.
or, but if it's right next to the prep for a PDF of the return side by side, it just makes it a lot quicker, if possible.
Should we upload the 19 return if we have it?
I'll let Bob answer that question.
Yeah, I think, a lot of you have done that. Especially if it's a returning taxpayer, it saves me, because I almost always go back and look.
Okay.
I almost always go back just to see, because you find things, you see things that, like, gee, it really was a mobile home park. We didn't enter it as a mobile home park.
Well, the earned income even more nowadays.
Yeah. And the earned income aspect for EITC look back as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. With that, leaving notes on what happens in your prep. So I copied over one of Dennis's here. But if you called the client and asked, checked anything that was unclear to you on their intake, it's going to be unclear to the next person who looks at it as well. So we are seeing some returns where, if I'm doing the QR, or Bob is, we'll call the person, they'll say, I already answered these questions. So remember to note those down, just being super clear on anything that anybody might need to know about coming up. Just like Dennis has here, I called the client, I talked to them, they are insuring a car, or they did only have 2 W-2s, even though they wrote down 3. Anything that you were unsure about, somebody else is going to wonder about. All right. And then if possible, once that second check tool has been run, if you see that it's been run and there's something on there where you're like, where it says check to see if the client is XYZ and you already know the answer, you can leave a note in there for the QR person so that they know it's, they know it's not something to be concerned about, because that tool will return things, it'll say check to see if they had, a car or medical expenses, and you already know there's no medical expenses. You can just leave a note there that says already checked, no medical expenses, good to go. Or if they run the tool and you're like, oh my God, I made a big mistake, you can also go back and change it. So if you, didn't fill out something right on the homestead property tax credit or whatever, and the tool alerts you, you can always go back and alter the return and then, re-upload it and say it's been fixed and it's ready for a QR now. Since you did the return, that can usually be a little bit faster. On to this look back. So we talked about this a little bit, but something some preparers didn't realize, and I had kind of forgotten about, the look back doesn't just apply to the earned income tax credit, it also applies to the child tax credit. And so it can influence the amount that they're getting refunded on both of those. So for any client who's eligible for either of these credits, you should check their 2019 earned income and see if it's going to be beneficial to them to put that down instead. Unless you're looking at like the refund they're at and they're already in that plateau where they're getting the maximum credit for their children. And there's images of that in the next slide. So if they're already at the max, if they're already in that zone, it doesn't matter. But if they're on either end of it, there may be a benefit to them to checking that 2019 amount. Bob is working with Patrick to improve this on the second check tool so that it's also looking, but that's still kind of being refined.
I'm going to just give you an example. A guy on his 2020 return didn't have any earned income. He just had Social Security, but he did have he had wage income in 2019. And so that generated quite a bit of extra refund for him.
And the issue there is that it didn't show an earned income credit for the 20 return. So even you have to know whether they might be eligible.
Right.
For either,
Exactly.
right? If circumstances were different, yeah.
Right. And it doesn't hurt the return if you enter the 2019 earned income and it doesn't affect the return. You put it in, rather than try to read the charts that are coming up.
Okay, so that's good to know. It'll automatically use whichever one's better if you put it in. Okay, that's good to know because I had wondered about that.
Where do we enter that?
Yeah, so it's in the basic information section when you fill in the person's like address and birth date and stuff. And then there's all those check boxes down at the bottom, taxpayer can be claimed by another person, taxpayer wants to donate to this fund. There's a new one here shown here at the bottom of the screen. Taxpayer wishes to use their 2019 earned income to figure their 2020 earned income and or child tax credit. And when you click that, it'll have a drop down. The designation is pretty much COVID-19.
That's pre-populated.
Yeah. And then the earned income, you just enter into this box and that's all you have to do.
It's exactly where you wouldn't expect it under personal information. Yeah. But it's one of 14 check boxes. You have to search for it. But when it lights up, you know you got it.
Yeah.
It's third from the bottom in that series of checklists.
And Bob, you said the source for the earned income was what worksheet?
There's in the Padlet, there's a write-up of where if you can get it from the earned income tax credit worksheet or the child tax credit worksheet. If there's no child tax credit, then you go to the the earned income credit worksheet. It's on line 6A for the earned income credit worksheet. And Dennis, I can't remember what line number it is. Now that
it's on B. It's
Yeah,
on the
it's
B,
5B,
the
maybe
B
5.
worksheet. It's the very top of the second B worksheet. I think it's question 4, actually, that lists the.
So
They list the
that
earned
write-up is it, I refer to it all the time, Martha, and I have it right up in a tab.
Okay.
But if they don't have, the EIC worksheet in the prior year, and well, you might want, you may or may not want to use it, but there are, doesn't the Padlet describe how you find it if you don't have an EIC sheet?
It
Like
does.
wages minus scholarship plus self-employed minus half the SE tax or something? Does it have it in the Padlet?
I am unsure.
I've read it, so it's there.
Okay,
Thank you, Lucy.
Thanks, Lucy.
great. Thank you, Lucy.
Nice. All right. And then just a reminder, these charts. So this is kind of to show if the taxpayer's already where this line is flat, it doesn't matter what their 2019 income is because they're already getting the maximum credit for their number of children. But if they're anywhere on here or on here, it's always worth checking because it could put them into a position where they're getting a higher credit. So keeping an eye out for that. And I know you may not remember these numbers. I'm not expecting you to remember all these income limits, but just using it as an example to show, there's an area where it really won't matter, but there's these areas here where it can be really, really significant with the rise or the drop off. So
I believe 65 and older, they're not even eligible.
that is
That's
correct.
And,
And under 25, you're not eligible if you don't have children.
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Yeah.
This chart is for head of household single, though. It doesn't have the married couple on it.
No, this is
It's
just
a little careful about how to use it. There's another version that's got both of them on it. It's just busier.
yeah. And this is the child tax credit with a single parent for one child, so it's only showing one as well. But this one has extremely steep, raising point. The drop off doesn't matter for us, obviously, because our clients are never getting up into this range. But in here, this is really critical for our clients because we definitely could have some who are in these two ranges here. And it's, the look back only applies to the child tax credit, not to the credit for other dependents, I believe. But just showing you how much that can increase here.
Right.
Ooh. Bob, I think this is you. Is this you? Or is this me? You're on mute. Bob, you're on mute.
It is true that in the bill that passed last week, they're excluding the first $10,200 of unemployment income. But there is nothing we can do about that. There's nothing in the software. We have contacted TaxSlayer. They said they're working very hard on it with the IRS. All the vendors are working on it. As you can imagine, there are a lot of issues. Does it also affect the worksheets for the child credit and the earned income tax credit, which use unemployment income in the calculations on how much you get? So it feeds worksheets. I don't even know if the legislation covered that or even thought about it. I mean, who knows? For the state of Michigan, we did get something back from Brian Rickovitis, who contacted someone in the Michigan Department of Treasury, and they said, as far as they know, if it comes out of adjusted gross income, which it will, then Michigan's not going to, pass some legislation to make it an addition back into income in the additions and subtraction form. So Michigan will probably just follow along and also exclude it. But until we have the capability with the software, we just have to ignore this for now. Now, I had a client this morning, had a huge impact on him. He owed about, I don't know, $500 of federal income taxes, and he had $16,000 of unemployment income, and I did talk to him about it. The problem for him is he's got about a $1,400 Michigan refund, and he owed $500 for his federal taxes. And he decided he wanted to file because net he's going to come out ahead, and he'll just let the IRS catch up to him when this gets implemented. Mm-hmm. So you just have to do it case by case. Talk to the client about it. Essentially, if they're in the 10% tax bracket, which is the lowest tax bracket, it's worth $1,050 to them. if they have taxable Michigan income from the unemployment income, it's 4.25% of whatever that unemployment income is, and can favorably affect their Michigan amount owed or the refund. But there's nothing we can do other than to tell them that this is coming. It will get implemented in some way. And if they want to wait until April 15th to do something, you know, we can set it aside. But in a lot of cases, they're netting out that they're getting money back anyway, and they'll want to file. And, you know, if they get more later, then fine.
So if they owe and pay, they'll just get a refund later.
Right.
Okay. And what about, did the state have this, has the state made a decision, if it's not an AGI for tax purposes, did the state in fact make a decision yet that the 10-2 goes back into till?
Well, I can read you exactly what this person said, and she's someone from the Department of Treasury, and she said, there is no statute that would require the income to be added back, and I'm not currently aware of any legislative initiative whatsoever to enact one.
Back to taxable.
Yeah, so Michigan's just going to go ahead and whatever the feds decide to do to AGI, which is where Michigan taxes start, Michigan's just going to accept it, is what she said. So she said not aware, you know, so maybe there is something going on and she's not aware of it. So I just suggested, Brian, I just said, keep shaking the bushes over there so we can find out.
Was there any comment by her about adding it back to total household resource?
No, she said there was no, she's not aware of any initiative to add it back. Oh, household resources.
Household resource.
Well, that's a good question. That's
Well, I thought you had said something, or somebody.
No, that's a very good question. So if it comes out of AGI.
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead, Scott.
It has to be added back, and according to that letter I read that you had, that I got, I was CC'd on it. It looked like it. I thought it had to be added back in total household resources.
I thought I saw a reference to it. I didn't know if it had been decided.
Also, I saw a CNBC article on my phone a little while ago for people that have already filed and had the unemployment tax. They're advising not to do anything, not to amend the returns at this point.
That's correct. Yeah, that's what we saw as well. So, you know, right now they don't want us to already start filing returns for those people. We're just holding until we hear from the IRS and from TaxSlayer how we need to do this. You know, so we'll just keep, the only thing we can do, because we still need to file these returns right now before April 15th, is just to keep going with them
and submit them, right? We're going to submit them, right?
Yeah, unless somebody specifically says that they want to, you know, they want to not file, but most likely they might just say, you know, I don't want to pay it and I'm going to get a payment voucher. And if that's what they choose to do, that's fine as well.
Right. And then wait to see what,
Yeah.
So I had read the official guidance from the IRS that was released 2 days ago saying that they wanted you to put it as a negative amount in Schedule 1, line 8. Is there a reason they just don't want us to do that as VITA because we don't know the impact that it'll have on the state taxes?
Well, I heard
Lucy, the problem is if you're doing the return by hand, you can do that. If you're using TaxSlayer, there's no way to get that entry on line 8.
Well, I did it with the return I had yesterday. I didn't submit it or anything. I just put negative 10,200 in the other on the other unemployed or income section.
There's a drop down menu on other, and there isn't anything that comes close to what this is.
To explain it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you know, I had just it's, you gotta, you know, there's a drop down menu, like, you know, and there's such obscure things. So.
Yeah, I had just played around with entering it the same way we would enter scholarship income and wrote unemployment deduction, negative 10,200, and it seemed to do it all the way you would think it would. So
it is what the IRS is saying to do. Yeah, net it out against 8.
And you know, we don't know what the rules are going to be and how it affects the other worksheets for earned income tax credit and child credit and so on. So
I heard that when you do that if you have taxable Social Security, that gets messed up in that calculation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah. And I think also for, for continuity for our clients, I think it also makes more sense, because I don't want to, if we do something for a few and then we stop doing it or we change it, we might end up with no record of like whose return did we file which way, and does, what needs to be fixed in what way now. So let's keep, let's just keep going at the moment, and we will keep, we'll keep you guys updated as we hear anything, and make sure we're very clear about what happens when.
And the ultimate stopgap is IRS is fixing this at the back end, so we don't have to do amended returns. We don't want to get in this. We don't want to get into this mess.
That's what we're hoping. And we did, when I was on the call with TaxSlayer last week, they are changing our reporting so that we can easily pull up a report that shows every return that has unemployment. And so we'll be able to, if we need to do anything with those returns, it's going to be easy to figure out which ones they are. But hopefully this will just be automatic on the IRS's end, where they'll be able to recalculate and refund people their money. Fun times.
So that's what we should tell people with unemployment, is that let's go ahead, we're going to go ahead and file it. If you owe something, hold on to it till at least April 15th before you send in money. And maybe by then it'll be fixed and the IRS will take care of it.
They can choose to do that, or if it's like a small amount and they just want to pay it and wait for it to be refunded to them, that's also fine.
Remember, Lee, they can't file their state return unless the federal return is e-filed.
Yeah.
So, if they owed a small amount in their federal return, you can schedule it for April 15th and then get the Michigan refund, as soon as Michigan pays it out.
Yeah. So this is going to be a little bit more conversation with the clients at QR, and just please definitely record, whatever it is they choose to do. So if we end up having to go back with any of these, we kind of have an idea of what's going on. All right. Next fun item. This is just a quick math thought. If you're getting stimulus amounts that clients are writing down, they have to mathematically make sense. So if a single client, one person tells you that they got 2 payments for a total of $1,600, that is not mathematically possible with the numbers that have been issued for the stimulus. So do take a few minutes to just stop and say, okay, this person said they got this much. Can they get this amount with using these numbers? So 1,600 cannot be created from any of these pairs. So check with that. Sometimes people just don't know the amount. And if you say, well, if you got both of them, you should have this amount, they might go, oh yeah, it was that amount. But just make sure you're entering that correctly into the software, because we're seeing a few of those as well, where people just don't know the numbers and they're guessing or doing bad math, which I'm guilty of all the time. This is a little note from Dennis. I'm gonna let him talk about it.
Oh, yeah, okay. So I have noticed several instances where I've been preparing, and this is for reference if you see one. I don't know what that means, but Office of Personnel Management, when you see a 1099-R, that's almost invariably a federal pension. It could be civil service, it could be federal employee retirement system, but in any event, for tier 1, it's a public pension, so you know that. If it's often civil service, and when it is, that is SSA exempt, almost certainly, but you got to ask the taxpayer. That can, because if it's SSA exempt, it can affect tier 2 and 3, right? I've noticed in every one of the OPMs I've got, I had 3 of them like in a week, and every one of them does not compute, none of them computed the taxable amount in box 2A. And it doesn't have a checkbox saying it did or didn't, because it's a different form. The OPM form is different from the standard 1099-R. Of course, it's a federal form. Use the pension exclusion calculator instead of TaxSlayer. I find it to be very intuitive and helpful in finding out from a customer what you need to know to do the simplified method, especially if it's a disabled person. You find out what their years of service are. If they're in civil service, that calculator that from Colorado 8 or whoever Colorado people are, it gives you, it figures out what the normal retirement age is based on their years of service, when they retired, and then does a nice schedule of what the cost offsets are to put in, to offset box. It actually tells you what you should be putting in box 2 under the simplified method. You can also print out the results. It's a nice little one pager that says, here are all the annual offsets you take over time, when they started, when they should have started, and when they will end. So it's good. I think it's a good way to do it. But the OPM is it's a big flag for all 3 tiers.
So if you see this, come in here and find these slides and check this back out, follow the instructions. We just want you guys to know that.
And the calculator's on the Padlet too.
Either that or change the prep responsibility to Dennis Bush.
All right.
Just throw them all at Dennis.
It's not that hard. I don't find tax layer to be very intuitive, because you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. This thing's great because it shows you exactly what you're doing. It's a really good tool. Colorado puts out good stuff. Apparently, we got 2 winners here.
Ooh, yeah.
That's the same recommendation that AARP follows too.
Thanks. That's good to know.
That's because I'm old. Yeah. Okay.
Clearly what it is. So Michigan reminders from Bob. You're on mute again.
I find a lot of people are not going into basic information and scoring whether the taxpayer or dependents, if there's anyone that's totally or permanently disabled. I wish you would do that always. Because even if they're not disabled, if you don't go in there, it scores them as not disabled, but it just forces you to think back whether it's possible they should be, like getting Social Security and they're less than 62, or getting SSI and so on. And were any of the dependents scored as disabled as well? That's where it gets entered. On the home heating credit, I'm finding a lot of people are passing right by whether the heat is included in rent or not. They just don't enter it. I don't know why. On the homestead property tax credit, I've had a number of QRs where both subsidized and cooperative housing were entered, or subsidized and service fee. And when you do that, the software double counts it in the form. It's very easy to see. If you go to page 1 of the form and look at the amount of property tax there is on page 1, and if you go to page 3, which catalogs the rental story, that you double counted it. And that's and then the last thing is we just got to get people using the housing list. Once you learn how to use it, it will give you the right answer. Had a lot of people making entries where it's tax exempt, like 1131 North Maple Road. That's Sequoia Place. It is tax exempt. The sheet that Dennis and Julia put together, the housing list, does work. If you don't know how to use it, ask.
So Bob, on the home heating credit, if the income is way above.
Don't do any entries.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Who said not eligible?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are wasting time on it, but I'm glad you said that. Have that page that has those upper income levels real handy, and if they're above that, don't waste your time making those entries. And I think a lot of our intake people, and we've told them this, are spending too much time chasing down, give us your heating bill, even if their income is low, it's rare that the annual heating cost generates the alternate credit, I can tell you.
But if you're looking for, whether they categorically don't meet the income limits, look, you may have already done the property tax credit. Look at the THR in that, and that'll tell you. Then that
Right.
THR number you can look up real quickly in the slides or in the CR7 instructions.
Yep.
Yeah, I think if you just Google like table A, like home heating credit, it's like the first thing that comes up for the state of Michigan.
By the way, any of you that go to any of the Ann Arbor public libraries, they've got a lot of the tax booklets right in the front lobby. You don't even have to go in. They've got the CR7, which is the home heating credit booklet. They got the Michigan instruction booklet, and they got the federal instruction booklet. And they're very handy.
Lead.
I just picked him up.
If any of you are ever like, I really wish I had this in paper. I mean, Julia and I are in the office on Saturdays, and we can make arrangements for you we can print something and you can pick it up, as long as it's worth printing, we're happy to get it to you guys. You guys are doing a great job this year, and I want you to have what you need. So just remember that. We're hanging out. We can do stuff. All right. Last round of reminders. Um,
When we submit our PDF of the tax return and we didn't put in home heating credit because they exceeded that, should we make a note or?
Yeah, it's helpful. Yeah, I think so.
I mean, if you don't try it, it's probably good for the QR person to know that you
Yeah.
looked and you made a decision. Maybe you were right, maybe wrong, but I mean, I tend to put it down the bottom, you know, THR is too much.
Yeah, I think that's real helpful.
Just let the QR person know that I looked at it at least, instead of forgetting it, which I sometimes do.
mhm. All right, last things for our QR folks. If it's possible, keep encouraging people to do direct debit if feasible. Of course, we definitely have, you know, this is a mixed bag right now with the, you know, unemployment. It might be easier for them to just go ahead and go with the payment voucher so they can hold on to it. But the direct debit is, you know, they can schedule it for exactly when they want it. And it is just a little bit, it's helpful on our end and it's helpful for them to kind of plan it out, I think, and not forget about it because we do have clients who forget sometimes.
Emma, on that, when I've done a direct debit, because it was requested by the taxpayer, it came up as a problem when Patrick ran and he asked me to go back and verify. So it's added another step.
Yeah, so we do, I mean, it's one of the things where we have, you know, people mark down direct deposit and then they read that one and maybe, you know, in their brains, they just read it as the same thing and they don't realize the money's being withdrawn. So we have in a couple of cases put people down for direct debit and they didn't want it. So it's one of the things that we are just super cautious about making sure.
I have heard from AARP that they've had cases where IRS took money out of the account when they found an error and the person didn't realize they were going to do that. So you said there's advantages to United Way if they do direct debit. What's the advantage to the United Way?
For us, it is just that we, you know, because Julie and I are only in the office on Saturdays, we're only mailing out those payment vouchers then. And so it's just us pulling up and packaging and mailing those out to clients, which just takes a little bit of time. So if they want it, that's fine. You know, I think it's a lot of people will say they don't want direct debit, but then when I tell them that they can schedule it, they like that a lot more, it seems like. So really, I mean, really, we want to do what the taxpayer wants, but if it's feasible, just make sure that they know that it's an option.
Well, the argument that I give is that I think we have a lot of our taxpayers forget. You know, it's something they got to do. They got to do it on April 15th, and they forget to do it. And if they forget to do it, then they're going to be late. And even if they mail it in late, they're going to get another letter back saying they owed a small penalty, and they get into that letter do loop with either the Michigan Department of Treasury or the IRS.
Well, so you remember that.
And you also tell them, hey, look, you're going to get your $1,200 in all likelihood before April 15th. You know, you should have the funds available to pay your $100 federal amount owed or whatever it is.
They just have to remember to have the money there, right?
Yeah, they just got to make sure the money's in there. That's right.
Items in DocuSign. This is if you're sending out a DocuSign as a QR volunteer, it is super helpful if you keep an eye out for when it has been signed, so that, you know, if the taxpayer for some reason 2 weeks later hasn't signed it, you can, you know, give them a call or send them an email and say, hey, do you want your tax refund? You still need to do this before we file your taxes. So just keeping an eye on those. And then when you see that it's been signed, you can change it to e-file consent received in Zendesk. And that just helps, you know, that just helps us to process them faster. And as soon as we know it's been signed, we can go ahead and file it.
So it keeps it in the quality reviewers court instead of having Bob track 78 different e-signatures waiting.
Right now, Bob is tracking them down.
He's Mr. Submitter, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Julia, or excuse me, Patrick and Emma. And is Julia doing it too?
Julia hasn't done it yet, but we are. Patrick and I just started last week, and Patrick will be getting involved in it here soon too. So we're building up to it.
Well, you know, we're all trying to keep an eye on it because every day matters. You know, if there's refunds involved, every day matters to these people.
All right. That's the end of this. Now we just have, you know, if there are questions about this or other mysterious tax items, now is the time. Maybe you just want to be like, please do this on a computer again.
This is Afa. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Sorry, I'm driving. Excuse my noise. But I had a client who did not respond to my calls or my texts. I don't know how to proceed.
You can tag Julia and Patrick and I on that return. And if you haven't been able to get a hold of them in any way, first of all, we'll check their phone number and stuff in Acuity. But then we'll just send them a letter that says, like, if we don't hear from you, your tax return is being deactivated. So yeah, just tag us if you can't get to anybody and you've been trying.
You could email them
Also-
too. If you have an email, it's okay too, right? You just got to get it to them. You don't
Yeah.
have to.
But if they're not answering email or phone, we'll send them a letter as well.
I think it'd also be great to market change the status to client issue help needed, so that even if you don't tag us or one of us miss it, another one will catch it.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's okay. I will also say for if you don't hear back, I don't want to speak for everyone else's inbox, but just due to the sheer number of tickets I follow, I get like 50 emails every day, and I do miss stuff. So you also, at least for me, thank you everyone who calls or texts me as like a reminder if you need something. I know that's helpful too. If it's, sometimes, we wait on clients for stuff, right? There are still clients who've been hanging around for a week or two for documents or, a typo in their own email or their name or things like that. People have filled out the additional documents link wrong. Dennis actually had someone with that for the past couple of days and the last week into this. So we totally get it. Things happen. If you're chasing down someone, for a week plus, right, there's probably better ways for you to spend your time.
I probably am on the phone with clients every single day. So let me know if you need some client phone call help.
I'm sorry to go back to this unemployment thing again.
No.
But I have a hard time wanting to have people submit anything right now, because although the federal will probably correct it, Michigan might not, and it's going to change their AGI. So I don't know. I hope they give us some guidance soon, because if we do have a way to just add it in TaxSlayer, I'd rather clients didn't have to. Maybe Michigan will have to do something next year where they have a box that says, did you get taxed on your unemployment last year, and we'll fix it then, or something like that. But yeah.
I mean, I think our concern is just, if the IRS does not push back the filing deadline, and we have a lot of clients with unemployment, and we're holding all of that, either we have to rush at the end to file it, and for all we know, hopefully we will not still be in the dark at that point. But the risk is that, we're making it worse for ourselves at that end.
Yeah.
And it's still up, a lot of it's still up in the air too about what Michigan will or will not do and so on. But I think our objective is to get these things out as much as we can and let IRS fix it. If we find later that Michigan's not, after the dust settles, maybe we got time to use TaxSlayer to give us a printout of all the Michigan returns that might be affected. I don't know if we try to get that and then look through them. Yeah, maybe we have that, but I wouldn't interrupt the production for it right now. I'm sorry. I don't know what Michigan's doing.
I agree with you, Lucy, though. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like this feels like a thing that, if it was just me personally, I would not want to do it either. But I think when we look at like the volume of returns we're trying to do this season and making sure that we file for people, we just have to keep going, and we will hopefully we'll have more info sooner rather than later.
I'm thinking many people are self-preparing and they're not up on the news and they don't even know about this issue.
Yeah.
And therefore, the government, it's really beholden to the government to get a notification out or even fix it.
Yeah, I mean, I think about we've already filed, a lot of returns, and almost no clients have called me to say, hey, how do I get this money back? So I think you're right. It'll take a lot of people who are not paying attention to taxes, know nothing about it, which is also kind of another issue.
It's going to be on the memo line in the checks that they send people.
Take that to the banker.
There's also the issue of the excess premium tax credit, which they won't have to pay
Right.
under this new law. And I haven't been seeing people with ACA insurance coverage. I don't know if you have, but
I bet you we haven't had 10 all year.
It's been really sparse. Yeah.
I have one person that I'm working on right now who has to pay something back on their ACA.
Got a few.
Well, if the IRS might fix that too.
yeah, they don't have to under the new law.
Oh, I hadn't heard that one.
The
Yeah.
IRS doesn't? Oh. Does the IRS have to fix the 10,000 too?
What an adventure.
Maybe we just suggest that nobody has to pay taxes this year. Just stop filing. You know, it'd be simpler than sending out all
Well,
these checks.
A lot of our customers, it would really hurt them if they don't file.
Well, that's true.
90% did our file. That's our files.
At some point, we want to get caught up to where we're just doing the current year for people again. We've already had somebody this year with 2019s. We'll have people coming in 2021 with 6 years of tax documents. Any other questions, prepare issues, other things you're curious about? Oh, those weird, some of you are seeing on the Scan and Go clients, there are these weird VITA security codes written at the bottom.
Yes.
You can
Yeah.
completely ignore those.
But what do we say to them when they say, no, do you have my security code?
If they're like if they're questioning you about it and they're trying to make sure your identity is real, you can read the code back to them from that sheet. That's what they were originally intended for, was so that like we could verify we were talking to the right person and they could verify that we were legit. So if somebody asks you about it, you can, just open that sheet and tell them the code.
What sheet are you talking about?
It's the
One of the intake sheets they sign for permission.
the taxpayer cover sheet. It has their direct deposit information on it.
So the one that has a direct, there's a code there somewhere.
Some
Yeah,
big
on the
numbers,
bottom of the
a
sheet.
whole row of numbers in the bottom, a space for them at least.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
They never knew that.
I know for a fact none of our Saturday clients read it. We don't.
But I could see where some of our other clients at at other organizations where they're like, who's looking at my taxes again? Because I definitely call some of our Scan and Go people and they have no idea what VITA is when I'm talking to our clients. So
I have a question,
Yeah.
really for the Scan and Go. So when I talk to them and I'm asking them questions, they always want to know like what's the process from here on out, because I'm just completing the tax return. I explained to them it's going to be reviewed, but I don't really know how they're contacted.
Yeah.
Some of them don't even have email addresses. So what should I be telling them to make them feel a bit more comfortable?
Yeah, so the QR volunteer will call them to review the entire return, let them know what their refunds and amounts owed are, walk them through any changes, anything like that. And then they will schedule them for an appointment to go back to the site where they scanned their documents in at, or they'll let the site know that it's done. There's a couple of sites that do their own scheduling, but we'll get them scheduled for their appointment and they'll go back in and sign everything and they'll get a copy of their return.
It's good for me to have something concrete because I'm being told you've had my return for like 3 weeks. It normally takes a week.
We are running slower than we thought we would this year, and I hope that the rest of you are not dealing with crabby people. Julie and Patrick and I are trying to catch most of them, but there are some crabby people out there. And we're just telling them this is our first time doing it this way. We're doing as much as we can to get caught up on stuff. If anybody is ever truly unhappy with you, please just email me or give them my phone number, and that is fine. But the majority of people that like Julie and I are seeing and talking to are just really thrilled that we're even doing it this year. So, a lot of the people out there are just delighted to have us, even if we're not in clinic.
Are you scaling back the pipeline a little bit at the front end?
Next
We
week.
did. Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
yeah, I guess, yeah. So next week, appointments scale back. We in scanning, the last week for Scan and Goes is essentially next week. There's a handful of more. And that's huge for us because the reason we're behind is, guys, like full disclosure, we get way more Scan and Goes a week than we budgeted for at the start of season. So when it's like, oh, we're 100 returns behind. Well, we get 20 extra a week that we weren't really like budgeting for. And that's kind of why we have 2-3 weeks in the end of season to kind of clear this pile. And so that will stop for,
Yeah.
and even the last day for virtual appointments, and there's only 25 or 30, I don't remember, is April 5th. I think, or whatever that Monday is, maybe the 4th. I don't have a calendar in front of me, but
yeah, and the last scan and go appointments from United Way are the 27th, and all of our other partners will mirror that. We'll stop taking in tax returns about 2 weeks before the end of season, and then we'll just have those 2 weeks to file, do lots of taxes. And just before anybody asks, if they do decide to extend the tax season, we will just survey you guys and see who actually wants to continue doing taxes. But we will be doing it on like a much scaled back basis. So it'll be, less intensity. We'll figure out what works for you and for our partners, and we'll send out emails about that if and when we hear about that happening as well.
On Nicola's question about what to say, I think it does depend on whether it's scan and go or whether they're virtual.
Mhm.
It is a little bit different.
Yeah.
And I would say you may get a call from the quality review person. I mean, if it's a really simple, Social Security, retired, maybe a 1099-R, you may not be necessary to call them.
You
But
still gotta call them.
You may get a call from it's going to be quality reviewed. You might get a call. And if it's a virtual one, you will get an email with your return, and you'll have to digitally sign it, and the quality reviewer will offer to review the return with you. If it's scan and go, you tell them that, you'll get a call from the quality reviewer to make an appointment for sure. And, when you call them to make an appointment, you just give them their numbers pretty much.
Yeah.
Because you can't really review the return because they don't have a copy of it at that point.
Yeah.
Which is just the way it is,
Does
And I doubt
everybody,
if people at the libraries are reviewing it with them.
does everybody get an email? If we have the email, does everybody get an email, whether it's scan and go or virtual? Everybody get an email that is submitted and accepted?
I've been getting them.
Does every taxpayer get a email from us to
if
say?
they don't have one, I mean, then no, right? Because some scanning go clients just don't have an address. That's not that common, but I mean,
No, but if
obviously,
they do have an email, do we send an email to them from our operation to say it's submitted?
Yes.
Yeah.
it's like the very last thing. Yeah.
Yeah, they get a automated email that says your return's been filed. You can check if you need to check your Michigan and state refunds, here's the links.
That's for virtual, for sure, yeah. How about the scan and go? Does it work okay that way?
For the scan and go, the partner gets an email. So it'll go to like Laura, and it'll say,
okay.
hey, this person's return is done. They're ready to be scheduled or whatever.
Okay.
They've been scheduled.
Okay. All right.
But we have drawn, I would say maybe a quarter of the scan and go people have an email, and we've been able to talk them into doing DocuSign.
Yeah. Which is great for Julia and I. We're not doing that many signature appointments, and I figured that
Sometimes that backfires because you end up spending a half hour how to sign it.
Yeah.
And click finished. It's like, why did I ever go down this road?
Yeah, and honestly, if it feels that way, like just send them to us because we're in the building anyways, and we have the appointment slots. So.
Well, not if it's a Ipsy library one though.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
You got to kind of like when you're talking to them, do they seem like they might have that capability?
Yes. Suss out their technological skill.
If they say something like, "Yeah, I check my email once every 3 weeks," you don't want to try DocuSign.
I have a bit of a PSA. I kind of mentioned in the newsletter, but if you encounter a client who's really struggling, even if they're getting a nice refund, just it'd be nice to refer them to one of our resources. There are clients who 2020 to 2021 has been really rough for them. United Way has financial navigators. There's 211. So we are taxes, but we also have access to other resources, and we live in a resource-rich community. And some folks are really struggling out there. Both Patrick and I are also financial navigators, so you can also let us know and we'll put it in the queue.
more money might be on the way for those folks too.
Yeah.
It's true. Some of we do, I think right now we're calling like between 4 to 6 VITA clients every week for people who had just specifically asked for help when signing up. So if that comes up in conversations through prep and QR, you can let us know. They may already be on their list. They may not, because, you know, it's everything from people who need help with housing to people who are trying to set some savings goals, right? Like we kind of cover all kinds of stuff on the spectrum. And as Scott mentioned, with more potential money coming in with change of the tax season, people receiving refunds, stimulus checks, you know, it is a good time for, it's kind of why we started doing this in March. So just something else to, you can share good news with us on that front, not just bad news with clients, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So.
I just heard a client just told me this morning that they had a pending deposit for $1,400 Saturday in their account.
Yeah, I
Yep.
got mine today.
Ooh.
So they're coming out this week. Yeah.
I think
Bulk of them,
3/17 is the big day. So
bulk of them will be out tomorrow. My bank already like sent me the pending payment.
All right. It's good to see all of you. We're going to let you go and get back to preparing taxes since we
Good
have so
job
many
on
to
that
do.
presentation there, Emma.
Huh?
Good
Thanks.
stuff.
That was a good job.
Good stuff.
You guys keep me organized. All right. We will see all of you on Zendesk in our volunteer happy hours. Come hang out with us. All that good stuff. We'll talk to you later.